It's like if you had a crooked painting in your house and somebody's like, the solution is we'll burn your house down.
Yeah. Have you decided on tilting your house?
Welcome back to the NerdNest podcast, everybody. It is the last episode of the year. We will not be back until January, but we have got a jam-packed episode for you. So first off, we've got some huge news that's coming from CES that we've got to talk about. We also have some retaliatory gift giving that we'll talk about in a little bit. On top of that, we also want to talk about a new retro device, the Steam Winter Sale, and probably a bunch of other stories as well. So if that sounds good, let's get started. And I want to start today's episode off with, I made a mistake. And I just want to apologize to everybody on the podcast because I went through and I was like, hey, I'm going to add all you guys as friends on Steam, which I can't believe we hadn't done before. And then I sneakily looked at everybody's wish list and found something that they had recently added, and I bought it and sent it to them. And then Cary decided, you know what? You're going to screw around. You're going to find out. He said, get ready to rue the day that you bought me a present. And he started doing it to everybody. And right now, I think sometime during the show, Russ is going to get, Cary's been planning to send Russ presents to bother him. And I just find this hilarious. What do you think about that, Russ? Has anything come through yet?
I keep a very clean library. I haven't seen anything yet, but we'll see. We'll see how this goes.
I'm going to get you I was going to wait. I didn't know if we were going to do it right now, so I'll just go ahead and just start. Give me a second. It's like
he's going to get you the Hee character pack on Payday 2.
Right.
Well, so
yeah, oh damn, it's making me write a gift message for each one of them. Okay.
You guys remember the what was the rat game that was like the game to give people
Bad Rats.
What? Bad Rats. Yeah, it was like the joke gift that people would get for other people on Steam.
I've never heard of this.
So you've not been on Steam long enough.
Yeah, it's a...
Well, I don't know. When Russ looked at my level on Steam, he was like, whoa, Bill, you're level 20. And then he looked at Cary's like, Cary's level 4,000 or some nonsense because he's got a giant library.
He's over 9,000, yeah.
Yeah.
Over 9,000. I did that just for the laughs. All right, gift sent. Gift deployed.
I just got a notification.
Gift deployed.
Received a gift. Oh, I got 3 notifications.
Oh, boy.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
He's ruined the day.
He's sending me good stuff. I thought it was going to be joke stuff. He's just sending me stuff from my wish list. Man,
yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
He called it retaliatory gift giving.
Yeah, you think you'll be nice? I'm going to be much nicer than you.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to remember that. And then the next time you're like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
What am I going to do now?
Nothing. Because I've learned my lesson.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I always want nothing for Christmas. That's like the only thing I ever want.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so real quick before we get into everything, Rich, what was your favorite Christmas gift, gaming related, that you've ever received?
Ever?
Or maybe just one that sticks out in your memory, not necessarily your favorite, because you don't want to alienate anybody.
So I think I don't remember if N64 was Christmas, but N64 was epic. I remember having like the VHS tape, like a teaser tape.
Oh my God, I remember that.
That like showed off Mario 64, and on the box of the VHS, like the cover art, there was like a wireframe sort of thing for the controller. So like it was the controller, but they also showed the wireframe, and I just obsessed over that thing. So I was really looking forward to N64. So I'm gonna say N64. I don't remember if that was Christmas or not, but I'm going with that.
What about you, Russ?
Probably Sega 32X. So, we got the NES for Christmas, but I was like kindergarten. Like I barely like remember any of that stuff. But then we got the Genesis one year, and then the Sega CD one year, and then we just kind of stopped playing it for a while. And then Sega 32X came out, and then just like flopped. But it went on clearance like that year, and so my parents got that and like 4 games, like Doom, Virtua Fighter, Virtua Racing, and something else. I think maybe Pitfall. But I was just like I never expected to get such a massive present like that. Like 4 games plus a console was like such a big deal. And I was like maybe 13 at the time. So that was like super cool. And it's funny because like a month later, I was like, how come I can't buy any more games? Because they were like out of stores at that point. You know what I mean? Like it just flopped. But it was still super cool. Like I was the only kid I knew that had the 32X. So that was really cool.
That's very cool. Cary, what about you?
If we're limiting it to Christmas, it would definitely be the Sega CD. And I remember distinctly about it because I remember my mom always used to play a devious trick on me. Whenever she had to do Christmas shopping, she would always be like, hey, do you want to go to Toys R Us? And purposely leave off and other places. So I would just be like at like clothing stores and other stuff that she's in, just like dying of boredom. Just like, oh God, please, let's end this. And I kept falling for it time and time again. I would never not fall for it. But after everything's so said and done, we'd go to Toys R Us. And I love Toys R Us. And I remember I would go to Toys R Us and I saw they had Sega CD there. But this is the Model 2 Sega CD. I didn't even know that a Model 1 existed. So I was like, it was outside of my wheelhouse. I was more of a Nintendo guy. And I saw I had a Genesis, but the Sega CD Model 2 was what I got, and it came with Sewer Shark, and I effing loved Sewer Shark. Sewer Shark, I think, is like a love or hate type of game, and it's a stupid FMV game, but I absolutely love it. You're on rails and just shooting at stuff, and yeah, I played that maybe 5 days straight before I actually beat it, because it's all just memorization. Yeah. That's all it is. Just like, okay, I know what I have to do here. Yeah, you just have to like pre-line up your shots just to beat it. And then I got to the end, and I got a lot more FMV games. So the Sega CD FMV games hold a special place in my heart.
That's awesome. It's funny if you try to emulate them. Oh,
go ahead.
I was going to say, if you try to emulate them now, like the actual image on the screen is tiny because they didn't have enough bandwidth or whatever. And so it's like you got to zoom in a bunch in RetroArch in order to make it look playable. So
right, yeah.
I remember playing Sewer Shark, and the guy... the jerk, the boss guy who's sitting there eating spaghetti on camera or whatever. And I remember seeing him in Die Hard 2, and I was like, oh, I know that. I was Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV, going like, oh, I know that guy. He's in Sewer Shark. Mom, Dad, he's in Sewer Shark. And they're like, what are you talking about?
I don't know this kid. This isn't my kid. I don't know him.
So I remember we had already had our Christmas. And then we would always go to my aunt and uncle's house for like a second Christmas or whatever. And it was there that I unwrapped the Super Scope, which was the light gun for the Super Nintendo. And it came with this really cool game that I wish that they would remake or re-release in some way. It was like Tetris, but in order to make the pieces fit, you had to shoot them. And then they were like made out of glass. And so they would... If I remember correctly, they moved left to right across the screen, and you would shoot them to get them to be the right shape in order to fit into the spots, and then the pieces would disappear or whatever. But I loved playing the Super Scope 6. In fact, I still have the Super Scope 6 cartridge in a Super Nintendo somewhere around here. I can't remember if it's in storage or not, but that's one of those things that, jumped out at me as one of those Christmas gaming gifts that I remember from when I was a kid. But let us know in the comments down below, what are some of your favorite gaming gift memories that you have? Not necessarily the best one, just something that sticks out in your mind. And feel free to speculate about what are the good games that Cary just sent to Russ out of spite, out of love and spite.
It's funny because we're all doing round robin, because literally one of the games he sent me is the one I sent Rich.
Oh, that's funny.
Nice. Had no idea.
That's awesome. All right, so we have a lot of stuff to talk about today. One of those things is CES, of which only one of us is actually going to be able to go to CES this year. I really would love to go to CES.
Oh, I thought it was two of us.
I thought Cary wasn't. Cary can't go,
I haven't
right?
been keeping up.
Yeah, no, I wanted to go. I made plans to go, and unfortunately, I could not swap with anyone to take my on-call that week.
Sucks.
People are on vacation, so I'm literally the only person that's on that first week of January. Yeah. It's like I got beat on it, so unfortunately, I can't go.
But Russ is going. He's going to be in attendance at this big event that Lenovo is calling. Was it Lenovo Cross AMD, the future of handheld gaming? Is that the title of it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're going to have some special guests there, including Pierre-Luc Graffet, who works at Valve, and I forget the guy, the VP of Next Gen.
Jason
Ronald.
Thank you. Yeah, Jason Ronald is going to be there, and he's from Microsoft. So we've got Lenovo, AMD, Microsoft, Valve, all on stage together. Russ is going to be there, but let's speculate. Let's speculate about what we're actually going to find out, and then after we get back in the new year, we'll obviously be able to report back, and make sure you subscribe to Retro Game Core so that you can find out about that stuff if he posts a video. Russ, what are you expecting to see? What are you hoping to see? Which you pick one of those two questions and answer it.
Yeah. Well, I should preface and say I don't have any insider information. They just sent me the link and said sign up, and so that's it. No like embargo, like you can't talk or whatever. So I'm really interested. I get that they're probably going to be doing a newer version of the full swing Legion Go, but I'm more interested in the budget one and to see what that comes together as, and really the price point. Like I think it's probably going to be around $500, but if they make it 400, that's going to be crazy. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to, is really seeing how that's going to play out from a consumer perspective. Like, what is the price going to be? And so that's what I'm excited for.
And that's the Legion Go S. And I think you're going to have a tough choice, Russ. Bill, I don't know if you. I'll go. I'll talk about what I think this is. Because
you're going to call on yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to call on myself. So there's two Legion Go S's, right? One white, one black.
Right.
The black one has the Steam button, the quick access button. So I think the obvious thing here is we're going to have they're going to compete, so to speak, right? We're going to have a white Windows model of the Legion Go S and a black Steam OS model of the Legion Go S. So that's what I was going to say. I'm curious as to like which way you would lean. White, was it white handheld? Do you prefer white?
I do prefer white handhelds.
Yeah. So white handhelds or Steam OS? Which one are you going to pick?
Yeah, that's going to be rough. It's weird too, because if it's the same chip, like, are they really going to bin these into different OS options and really dumb it down for anybody? Because, if it's the same chip, I'm going to try to figure out putting whatever OS I want on whatever one, and so that'll be really interesting to see what they do. Are they making it so rigid they're saying this is a Steam OS machine and this one's a Windows one when it's the same chip? Like that'll be the really interesting part.
I think you'll be able to install either, and like the hardware and stuff will be the same, but I do think they will not bin it in the CPU sense, but like they will segment it, right? This is the Steam OS choice. This is the Windows choice.
Yeah. You don't think that they would have like the black one has the correct logos on it. So that means that on the box, they can put powered by Steam OS according to Valve's new brand guidelines. So correct. I do think that like, You'll go to the store and you'll like the Best Buy or whatever, and you'll click Legion Go S, and then you'll have different models. Just like when you go to, I don't know, buy a phone, and you say, oh, I want to get the new iPhone. Well, which new iPhone do you want to get? This one with this much storage, or this much storage, or this much storage? And so there'll be a little drop down menu, and they'll say, oh, I want it with Steam OS, or I want it with Windows. I heard somebody say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think they're going to like cause disruptions by making too much choice? That people are going to be like, I don't know, I'm just supposed to buy the doohickey that plays my games, and now I've got to figure out like operating system. You know what I mean? Like, is it too far in the weeds for your Best Buy consumer? That's what I'm really worried about.
I get it from the standpoint where they're going to be coming from, because getting back to that iPhone model, there is an understanding of, are you getting a out of the box one? Are you getting an unlocked one? Are you getting a Verizon one? Are you getting a T-Mobile iPhone? Are you getting a whatever? Because those have different types of things behind them that sometimes the carrier themselves will actually have validation for being a thing that can go on their network as well. Mm-hmm. So when you think about it through that layer of testing and validation, if you're buying the Steam OS version of the Legion Go S, for SteamOS, that's one that Valve is going to assume is on their plate that they're working with Lenovo on.
Correct.
So Lenovo has support, but with Valve as well, because Valve is going to be the one that's actually delivering the drivers to the Legion Go. That's the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
So from a support standpoint and how that whole thing is structured, I could see why it would be like that. And same likewise for Microsoft and Windows, that they have their own thing as well. And there's a whole gigantic bureaucracy engine in there that it's like it's unreal, because like I would talk to Asus about this and I'm like, why can't you guys just do this? And they're like, well, technically we can, but we have to talk with AMD and we have to talk with Microsoft to do that. And they both say no. So it's never, ever a technical challenge. It's a bureaucratic one.
Yeah.
So that is what a lot of things come down to. So unfortunately, even though it doesn't make a bunch of sense, I think ideally people would just like, a button that's, whatever, the guide button, which would be Steam in SteamOS and it'd be Xbox in Windows. And ideally, it would just dual boot. Like, I want to boot into SteamOS and I want to boot into Windows, and they would figure out a way to support that. But so, there's a lot to do.
That's a good point, because Microsoft and AMD aren't alone in that sort of bureaucracy. Valve, who is a lot less bureaucratic, also has this bureaucracy in place now with this powered by SteamOS branding, right? Because if I recall correctly, it's not dual boot, it boots directly into SteamOS, and that's what you need for that guideline. Yeah. So, that just exists, right? Because if they're going to support it, then, if I log in a Steam support ticket, they're not going to want to support dual boot by default, and, which one is your BIOS, is your grub set up correctly, all of that stuff, You
can already see that with the amount of support they're giving with Windows on Steam Deck, like they're just giving a trifle here and there, But honestly, between all the companies that need SteamOS on their handheld, I would say it is Lenovo, because it's now been a year since they've updated the drivers for the Lenovo Legion Go. Like the December drivers are the ones that I'm still rocking on my device. And it's because they're the ones that actually support integer scaling. And I know there are ways you can work around it and stuff, but I don't want to work around anything. I want the company to deliver it,
Landmine.
Yeah. And so, so of all the company, like I feel like they're the ones that are like, okay, we obviously cannot do this. So who can help us? Steam. You know what I mean? Like SteamOS, Valve, and all that kind of stuff. And so it seems like a good match, at least for me.
So really quickly on the driver thing, I have never gotten like direct confirmation on this, but it has always been my assumption that the reason that the Z1E does not have mainline Radeon drivers is just because it's not in line with it. So when you have to get driver updates, Lenovo needs to basically pay to AMD or whoever to do the whole validation thing of saying XYZ is going to do this and you can install this. And Asus has been paying, and Lenovo hasn't. And it's going to be interesting because effectively what they have is a 6800U. And if they have a 6800U that is not a 6800U, but some offshoot that is labeled different, then they're getting these chips cheaper, as how I always understood it, because there is no support, right? Like AMD is like, you want it, you're going to pay up. Same for Valve with getting Windows driver on Van Gogh. Valve is going to pay up to get those Windows drivers. So that's my speculation again. I have it's because there's why would a company just be like, no, we don't want, it's totally free to do it. No, we're not going to do it.
The interesting thing about Valve on the Steam Deck side is that they're the ones building the drivers, right? Alongside.
Yeah. Redvi. Yeah.
Yeah. They're on the like choice side. I do hope that they do keep those choices to like a minimum, right? So like, I hope that for at least for the Legion Go S, that it's just two choices. So you don't get the choice of like space. Storage. It's just literally black SteamOS, white Windows. I hope that's it.
But again, I think it's like even the leaked specs of it is like, oh, this is 512 storage, 16 gigs of RAM. This is budget options at this point. So when I saw that and I was like 6800U and budget everything else, I have a strong feeling that it's going to be $400, $500 at max. If it's over that, then it's just like, I don't know what these guys are doing.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Right. Yeah. But coming out with a 400, I mean, like that that still sounds like I'm not ready to commit to them going with 400, but I hope that they do. And if they do, I think that, coming with alongside like the Switch 2 being released soon, I think that would be big for them.
Right. Yeah.
The crazy thing is that at that point, if it is, say it's $400, what really, like, what is it going to offer that is going to make me as like a reviewer or whatever say, yeah, get this over the Steam Deck? You know what I mean? Like, they still have to get over that hump. And so that'll be a really interesting screen quality. Like, I don't know what it's going to be. And so that'll be very kind of challenging for them, I think, regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be super interesting, right? Because 6800U, it's like, it's as good as a Steam Deck up to 15 watt, but then you could put more power into it and get 25% better performance over a Steam Deck. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
all right. I guess that's something.
Yeah, I always find that comparison tough when you're in that like $400, $500,
but
$500 range.
If you're at $400, you're like, okay, well, I can get 30% better performance and put more power to it, but I don't get OLED. And it's like, okay, price wise, it's kind of a toss up. What do I want more? And I can see someone making that decision, like going through the whole thing in their head. So it'll be interesting. I think what the thing that really like gets me a bit is that it's not Asus or MSI that has gotten in with SteamOS, it's Lenovo. And Lenovo, I felt like, has been the most distant out of all these companies.
What do you mean?
Like, so the Legion Go came out, and I love it. I love the idea of it. They executed super well on the Joy-Con like designs. Love it. But it's also a MIPI-based display with super high resolution, gets super bright. There's like some things that are like anti-ethical. It's more of a, hey, look, this could be a gaming handheld, but it could also be a tablet with a keyboard. And, it kind of has this like...
Did you say anti-ethical or antithetical?
I said anti-ethical, but that's how I say it.
Oh, but you mean antithetical?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just making sure. I was like, what's not ethical about a tablet? But go ahead then.
Yes, no, that's just how it came out. When you look at it, Lenovo came out with it, and it kind of just died down, right? Like Asus followed back up with an Ally X. MSI came out later, but then they also followed up very quickly with the AI 8 Plus, whatever. So they're still like kind of like in the news, right? They're churning in the news, and Lenovo kind of just like faded away into the background.
Yeah, that part, absolutely right. Like
so it's interesting from my point of view, especially talking with people from Asus, that they were like, oh yeah, we were trying to do stuff with Valve all the time, and it's just like, oh, okay, cool. And then Lenovo was like, hey, what's up, guys?
Lenovo, just last week we were talking about how much they've leaked stuff, but they've been working on these handhelds for a while, and we've seen the leaks, but we haven't seen them say too much about it. So I guess they've done a good job of not necessarily keeping the secret, but at least just staying quiet until things are ready.
Yeah, until some like weirdo blog is like, hey, here's all the information.
Or some case manufacturer sends it to some dipshit YouTuber.
Got a mock-up, but this is it.
We have to add that to the show notes. So I want to talk about that, the Switch 2 stuff.
Oh, okay. Yes. Well, that's what I just got up for, was to go get it out of my backpack, because I brought it I went to work today to set up some stuff for science lab, and my coworker is a big gamer. I was like, here, check this out. And so yes, we will talk about that as well, although it's not anywhere in the show notes.
That was just a superpower that you did. You just showed up. You're like, hey, look at this. Like, what is this? Oh, that's the Switch 2.
Just out of nowhere.
No big deal.
Exactly.
You'll hear about it in a few months.
Russ asked a question. He said, do you think it's too much to have that as a drop-down menu decision for the consumer? Just real quick, I want to make sure everybody answers that question. I don't think it's too much to ask the consumer to choose their operating system. Cary, do you think it's too much?
I don't. Well,
so
yes and no.
Let me frame it like the way that I'm envisioning it, at least.
Yeah.
It's a fly-by dad who's at Best Buy to pick up the latest Switch game for his kid, and he walks by and sees it, and he's like, "Oh, there's a black one, there's a white one." And then there's all the OS options. That's what I'm kind of worried about. It's like,
and the guy at Best Buy is not going to be able to explain that to the dad.
Yeah,
there's just.
I think you're going to have. Yeah, you're probably going to have a salesman that's going to lean hard in either way. That's going to do the strong sell on either one, just to give like a definitive type of thing there. Windows might win out just because that's what people know. So it's like, oh, this one has Windows, this one has SteamOS. And it's like, I don't know what SteamOS is, so I'm going to do Windows. Because I know what Windows is. I've heard that before.
That's also why this panel is going to be important. I don't know if I fear they're going to miss the mark. At least, I fear they're going to miss the mark with this. But the panel is going to be important to sort of distinguish what this is, and they're going to be talking about the future of PC gaming. And I know that like people see Windows or Microsoft and Valve on the same panel, and they're like, oh, they're going to work together. But I don't think they are, or at least not any more than they already are. Right? Like they're very dependent on each other. But I don't see this as like Game Pass is coming to Steam native, right?
No. I mean, no, I don't see that personally. Like what I've been hearing, like looking and the rumblings around it, is that Jason Ronald is now the vice president of Next Generation Hardware. Mm-hmm. So that's his new title that just came around. So I'm of the belief that what we're going to see here is at least some type of fingerprint of Windows on handheld, no longer just being Windows on a handheld, but an actual concerted effort to do something right in a handheld space.
Yeah. At the same time, though, you've got their marketing campaign right now.
Everything's an Xbox.
This is an Xbox. This is an Xbox. This is an Xbox, and then they hold up the Lenovo Legion Go S, the black one. And then they say, "Oh, this is also an Xbox."
It is, right? They're going to give you the platitudes, right? Because it's going to be cloud gaming. Just
no,
you can
thank
do
you.
Game
That
Pass.
sucks.
But that's what it's going to be, right? Like
you're right.
I think so. Microsoft, this new being Satya Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
They are much more like open market, free market kind of Microsoft compared to before. However, I think they see how dependent they are on Valve, right? Like the tables have turned. Valve used to be very dependent on Microsoft, and now I see Microsoft as very dependent on Valve. If Microsoft wants to sell PC games, they have to sell them on Steam, right? Like there's no other option. They have games on the Xbox app, and they're probably not selling very many games there. Or is it the Xbox app? Is that what it's called?
It's just a Windows store, but
Windows
you get
store.
to it through the Xbox app sometimes.
So they're very dependent on Valve, and I think that, if push come to shove, they will put Game Pass on native Steam, but they don't want to because they don't want to become any more dependent on Valve than they already are. So they're going to try to grow Game Pass as much as they can, and then if they need to, then they'll push it.
But at the same time, we had that rumor, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, where they were talking about maybe having other stores on Xboxes. And so what if that's the deal? They're like, okay, we'll give you Steam on an Xbox if we can also do, or like you can put Steam on our Xbox if we can do Game Pass.
Xbox on Steam. Yeah.
Right. And like that helps everybody, I think.
How do you do?
Yeah. I think that everybody would be doing cartwheels because like if you go back a few months to the episode when we talked about that, I was like, would that make you want to have an Xbox more? And I think everybody on the panel was like, yeah, if I could run.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, so that helps Microsoft and it helps
silly,
Valve.
Windows PC thing that I had to go through. I'm still using it. I actually played Indiana Jones before this on my Windows PC in my living room. I just woke it up from standby and everything just worked. And I was like, man, this is so nice. I really wish Microsoft would do this.
Right.
Yeah. So what Cary's talking about is you just did a video called what I just did what Microsoft couldn't, right?
Yeah, thanks to you guys. Thank you for that title, guys. That was winner one. I think that was like your second one, Rich. You like that? I was like, ooh, that's so good. I want to click on that.
Nice. And it was an awesome video that just basically you found the minimal amount of software that you could to exclusively interface with your computer using a gamepad. So you were waking it, user account UAC prompts, login, which was nuts, right?
Yeah, everything.
So that was insane. So that's a really good
without
video.
needing Steam directly, right? I didn't want to rely on. Right. So I initially installed a bunch of crap, and it was like this big, Rube Goldberg machine of like this fails and then that craps out and this fails and that crap out. That RGS vMouse driver was something that I had to pull back from a long time ago. It actually helped Ioneo out as well because they were having problems with some stuff, and I offered it to them and like, oh yeah, that works. And I remembered that, like, you know what's funny is there was like two different things that had occurred. I used to use JoyX off in the long ago for like the Win 2. And then I stopped using it because I was like, I'll just go to mouse mode and I don't care. I don't want another thing running. So I've always used it because I knew UAC worked on it. And I hadn't used it in such a long time that I literally forgot about it. And I was on like we have like a mod chat on GPD Discord. I was like, yo, Cypher, what should I be using for UAC? He's like, dude, just do JoyX. I'm like, oh, of course. I use that so much. Like, how did I forget that? And it was like, I had 2 moments of that where like I built all this stuff. I was like, wait a minute, what the hell am I doing with all this stuff? So I just like paired it all back. And then like, it took like a month of like making all this and then like reducing everything. And then another month of just using that straight and not having any problems. I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to go with. And I'll tell some people. There's still some gotchas, like the Binding of Isaac is completely busted in Windows 11. You do need like Magpie or something else. Yeah, the original.
Yeah. Okay.
It's so like literally the controls are like, dude, use Joy-to-Key, Google it. Like that's in the menu of Binding of Isaac.
It was a Flash game, right? That's why. So
exactly,
so like if you have the newer Binding of Isaac, which is the better version at this point. Right. You won't run into those issues.
I use that because obviously it's not the correct one to do, but there are going to be instances where you're just going to have weirdo problems that GameScope and other stuff solve that you're going to have to deal with. So I was just like, okay, let me just address these things in like clear visual results that you can see like, oh man, that's a giant problem. Oh, that's how you fix it. So that was basically that video. But it's all of these things are things that Microsoft is going to have to solve, right?
But it's kind of insane that you were able to do that, right? Like, and I know it took a lot of work and it's still not like streamlined and user friendly, but like you did it and Microsoft has had years and hundreds of staff and hasn't, right? So they're just late to the party.
The big issue is I'm worried they break it. Like Microsoft is going to patch something and Cary's fantastic tool set that he's developed here is going to fall apart like a house of cards.
My whole thing shouldn't be used. It's a thing that exists despite itself, and
it's a proof of concept.
Yeah, and I've been using it for a month, and it's been great. Like I just literally have my machine go to sleep, and then I just hold down the Xbox button, and it wakes up, and it operates as I would imagine it to work. And I'm like, oh, geez, that's just super awesome. So I've been playing Indiana Jones on my Windows gaming PC. Getting back on topic, I would rather have a less performance because I have a 7900 GRE in there. I would rather be on an Xbox Series X that can go on Steam, that can play Steam games, and just have that in my living room because it's already there. Yeah. I wouldn't want another thing. I would be okay with something that was like slightly less performance. The Series X is still a nice machine.
It is.
So if I could play Steam games on it, I would be like, oh, I already have good working control support. Yeah, of course I'd like Steam on there.
So that's interesting too. Sorry, Bill, were you going to say something?
Go nuts.
Got it. So the the other thing that came up, so the Xbox potentially getting the Steam store is something that we heard about like a year ago ish, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing that came up recently with this Lenovo stuff is that Xbox may be thinking about having third parties make Xbox hardware in the future.
Right.
And so back to like Russ's thing, this gets very confusing very quickly if like Lenovo, MSI, Asus are all making Xboxes and like which one do I buy? And then Steam is doing the same thing with like Steam Decks, and it seems like they're going to do a Steam set-top box with Fremont, and Fremont probably won't be the last, so they'll probably have third parties making these set-top boxes. So it's now we're starting to go from, we learned the lessons of Steam machines to maybe we're going to repeat those same mistakes. I hope that they do figure that out.
Well, I think the mistakes that we saw with Steam machines the first time around was that Valve didn't make one. They only partnered with third-party companies, and those third-party companies had to price the things higher in order to make a profit because they don't make any money on games. So this time, if Valve is making Fremont, well, that's a reference to like that. They have a reference design. They're going to have a lower price point than everybody else, and it's going to drive the prices of these devices down, just like it happened when Valve released the Steam Deck we suddenly saw the prices of handhelds drop. If the Steam Deck didn't exist, I guarantee if the ROG Ally came out, or the Lenovo Legion Go, if those things came out, they would have been way more expensive, because that's how much handhelds cost before the Steam Deck. The second issue that was also now been solved is Proton. So I think those were the two big mistakes, and it seems like Valve is learning from those mistakes, and it's okay if other companies are also making that.
I feel like Proton was a response. Sorry, Russ. I feel like Proton was a response to Steam Machine 1 in a big thing. They were like, we need to make this whole software layer first, and that took years. Like, you can still find a video from me on the GPD Win 2 in like 2017 where I used Proton on, and I was like, oh, this thing's kind of cool. It'd be kind of great if they did something about this. Anyway, Russ, you were going to say something.
I was just going to say, from just a marketing standpoint, getting back to that Best Buy flyby, it's like they have to dumb this down. They really have to just make it super simple. I know there's a lot of factors involved, but I think the reason why PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 are just easy to remember, and they are successful as part of that process. I remember when I had an Xbox 360, loved it, but then there was the Xbox One, and it's like, don't understand what all this thing can do, Then they made like the Xbox One S or something like that, and then made an Xbox Series S, and I'm like, what are all these things? You know what I mean? Like, just from an average consumer perspective, it is just too much. And so
it's like the Wii U.
So my worry here is, like, you're going to get these three big people in one room: Lenovo, Valve. I mean, four really. Got AMD and also Microsoft. Are they really going to come together and say, you know what, we're just going to make one solution that everyone's going to love? They're probably like, hey, this is codename Raven, and this is going to, you know what I mean? Like, they're going to start throwing all that stuff at us. It's just going to muddy the waters, I think, even more. And so that's my big thing. It's like, I want to see how they're going to come out of this with a consumer-friendly project that is actually going to move units in a tangible way for everybody.
I've just figured out a solution. In Best Buy, they sell the white one. Sell the black one directly from Steam.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible.
That probably will happen. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say like in Micro Center where people know better.
I mean, yeah, I could totally see that being the case. I don't know, it'll be interesting. I really wish that I could be here, because I feel like this is a pivotal moment of something happening. It's either going to be pivotal or it's just going to be business as usual. But still, regardless of what it is, it's either status quo or megaton. And I would love to be there for that. I'd be like, whoa! Yes. like shaking Russ on the side. Like, can you believe it?
You could be like those guys from the IGN meme where like Per Schneider and them are standing there and they're pointing at the thing.
Yeah.
Do you think that they also, like, do you think with Microsoft being there, they're like, by the way, here's our new UI. I know Cary just fixed it for us, but here's now that he went through all that work, here's our new UI. What do you think about that, Cary?
I would love it. Because they need to do it, and there's been like lots of things whenever like, oh, Xbox app updated, now they have compact mode. I'm like, this just gets rid of the text.
Yes.
What is this? Why is this a news item? Like, I don't care about this. Is nothing. You just posted about a big nothing burger. So they really need to the controller needs to be a first class citizen. Whatever path that they need to get there, like literally. They already have a login screen for PIN codes on Xbox. So if you have a PIN code, it says these are what you use to put in a PIN code on your Xbox controller. Put in your PIN code. And Windows should like have a screen that says, oh, we see a controller's error. This is how you put in your PIN code, and put it in with your controller.
Yeah.
So they already have it on Xbox and people already use it. So obviously it works. So they could already leverage the things that they've already been doing. There's lots of things that they could do to streamline the whole process. And you know what's funny is when I first started like tweeting about this, people are like, oh, I just disable UAC, and I get rid of all the security in my system.
Right, that's
like,
a bad idea.
Yeah, that's how I solve it.
Yeah,
like,
I do remember a comment on a reply that was like, yeah, just this is the command you need to disable like passwords. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right. Yeah, it's like just let anything go was their solution. I'm like, well, that is a solution. I'm not going to go down that one.
It's like if you had a crooked painting in your house and somebody's like, the solution is we'll burn your house down.
Yeah. Have you decided on tilting your house?
Let me mark that clip for the intro.
There you go.
Ultimately, I think that something's happened. Like Jason Ronald being the VP of Next Generation Hardware, it seems interesting. And I feel like, with the Switch 2 coming around, I think Microsoft feels the pressure. At least Phil Spencer has vocally said out loud that in 2013, the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One was the worst thing for them to lose on because everyone built their ecosystem on PlayStation since then. And now that the Switch 2 is coming around and now you have a more performant Switch 2, there is an avenue where I know there's people that I know that that say they're not going to get multi-platform games like Mortal Kombat or whatever because it just looks like junk on a Switch 1, and they'd rather buy multi-platform games on another system. But if effectively the Switch 2 could just be as good as a PS4 Plus, right? That's already in what our people are doing anyway. So now you have a problem where now they're going to be buying exclusively on Nintendo. So the handheld ecosystem is more or less like solidifying. It is cementing in real time. And that is, I hope Microsoft is paying attention. They're like, goodness gracious, we have to get going. Or else the ship is going to sail, and we will once again, be saying, "Oh, we should have done X, Y, Z."
Well, I don't want us to get to the end of the show and say, "Oh my goodness, we should have pivoted to a new topic sooner," because we've been going for 40 minutes on this topic. So, before we do move on, though, Rich, you had that second link in there that you had added at the beginning of the show.
It was the third-party Xbox hardware thing, and on that they say like these third parties would be using like potentially Xbox operating system. So that's just, by the way, that's just another wrinkle, right? Like we'll have Windows, we'll have Steam OS. It's possible that there's a whole other Xbox operating system that other third parties will be deploying. So
I mean, if we get to that point where we were all like, "Oh man, it would be super awesome if Xbox supported Steam," there is power in openness and supporting other things. If you if you say, "Hey, an Xbox also has all of this choice, where all those games you already bought just work on this thing," that is very compelling.
Yes,
and they actually do need to do that, right? Because you just said it, right? They said that they lost the most important generation to lose because of those digital libraries. It would be terrible if they forced the Xbox people to press reset on those digital libraries that they do already have.
Yeah. So I could see it, and that would give them a big advantage, and they could leverage their own Windows OS going forward. But that's maybe Satya is like, "Yeah, let's go. We're just going to embrace everything." They've already been embracing Steam forever. They haven't been doing crazy launchers like other things are. They're like, "No, we're just going to sell games on there." And I love buying Microsoft games on Steam. Like, it's like where I was doing it before Game Pass existed. And that's the only reason that I like slowed down is because of Game Pass. But otherwise, I was just like, all right, well, I'm not going to buy an Xbox. I'll just buy on Steam. And I'm glad it's day one here. And that was a positive consumer thing for me. And, you see like Ubisoft starting to put Steam achievements back on their games. I'm like, oh, I wonder, are they going to get rid of their crappy launcher? If they do, all of a sudden, Ubisoft is back on the menu, boys.
Back on the menu. Well, let's move on to other menu items. In fact, one thing is right now, we've got the Steam Winter Sale. And before we sat down to record, I sent a message to all the guys, and I was like, hey, can we all just pick a game that we can recommend to people that you can get that's cheap right now because it's either on sale. And I think the winter sale is going until, Rich, do you remember when it goes until? January 2nd?
January 2nd? Yeah. Okay, it's like so after New Year's.
Yeah, so we got about a week. So, as most people see this show, they should see it in the first week. So I'm going to start us off. And I picked a game that I don't want to talk too much about. Not because... I just don't want to spoil it for anybody because I was completely in the dark on this game. I had been playing Apex Legends, and then somebody said, well, you played Titanfall 2, right? And I was like, no, I've never played that. So then I ended up picking that up and trying it out. This is probably a year ago or maybe a year and a half ago. And I picked it up when it was on sale. It's often on sale. And I was playing through it, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool as you were like, running on the walls and jumping and calling in your mech and doing all of the crazy things that you do in Titanfall 2. But then something happens, and I don't want to spoil it for anything, because for me, it shocked me. You get like this new ability after a few hours in the game, and that completely changes how you play the game. And it kind of blew me away. And Titanfall 2 is currently on sale on Steam for $3. It's 90% off. And it's every time there's a Steam sale, this game is on sale. But if you have not picked this game up yet, number one, it's incredibly fun. Number two, it's the traversal. If you have ever played Apex Legends and you're like, I love the way you can move in this game, it all comes from Titanfall 2. It's just a really, really good game that lets you play both on foot and in this crazy mech. And I loved it. And I had so much fun playing it. And for $3, you cannot go wrong. Russ, what game did you pick to that people could pick up that you feel like this is a hell of a deal?
Yeah, I went back and forth. I think that one of the best deals is actually Metro Exodus for $3. That's a full-on AAA game, when it came out. But I had to think to myself, I'm like, well, I only put like 6 hours into that game and I gave up. And so I was like, what's the safer bet? Like, what would I actually recommend? And it's easy, but it would be the Halo Master Chief Collection, because it's $10 right now, so 75% off. And it's got 6 games in it, and all 6 of those are good games. And so that's just an easy recommendation if you don't have it already. And honestly, it's not even just 6 games. It's more like 10 games, 9 games, because of the first 3 you can it's the first 1 or 2, whatever. You can change the graphics on it. So you can play like the old Xbox version. And so it's probably only the first 2. And then you can move on and play like the upgraded one. And so it's just so much content. I don't even play multiplayer. It's just single player alone for $10. That can eat up months of your life. I love it.
And if you missed out on Halo, like I didn't have an Xbox until the 360, and Halo was not the game that I picked up. I never played the original Halo. I never played a Halo game until I think it was like 3 years ago. And I picked up the Master Chief Collection, and I played the first one. Number one, I laughed my ass off when I saw the old graphics compared to the new graphics. But number two, I played that whole game in a weekend, and I couldn't put it down. It holds up incredibly well. I loved it.
There's a split screen mod so that it adds back native split screen to, I don't know, Halo 1 and 2, I think it is.
Yeah.
So
I did that with the GPD Duo, that 2-screen laptop. I set it up for each screen was a different player, basically, and then because that can fold over, like tinted, and so you can sit across the table from the other guy playing, and you each have your own screen, cool. But you can do like co-op or multiplayer and stuff like that. And so that was pretty cool.
Rich, what game did you pick?
All right, I'm changing my pick last minute.
Oh,
the game I picked now that I said mods, is Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. So it's 80% off, $7.99. And if you guys know Maximilian Dude, the YouTuber, he just like him and a team just released a new mod called Infinite and Beyond, or Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and Beyond. So Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite received a lot of flack when it came out. It was the follow-up to Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and it just deviated a lot in a lot of different ways, but one of the big ways was just the rendering. Like it no longer looks like a comic book game, right? So this mod brings back that like old school MVC rendering. It adds new stages. They tried to keep it so that like it's not a reason to replace the existing game. It's just enhancing the existing game, but the existing game is on sale now, has, thousands of people playing it again. I think it was down to, the low hundreds, but now has people playing it again. So it's a good time to dive in.
Yeah, if you go to the launch for the release back in 2017, it had the number of players that were playing concurrently. I'm looking at Steam info, and I'll try and put this on screen if I remember later on. There were like 3,603 players on release that were playing that concurrently. And then you look at it like right now, it's up to 1,300. And like if the graph is completely flat from 2018 until the very end of 2024, and then there's a huge spike. I think I read somewhere that the number of players that are playing this game right now has just exploded thanks to these mods from Maximilian Dude, who makes really good stuff, by the way. Yep. Cary, what game did you pick?
So the game I picked is at a historical low right now, and you can get it's on Gamebill, but it's also on CD Keys, and I really like CD Keys. So same price will be about $12.60, and that is Hogwarts Legacy. And this is a game that I've been waiting to buy, so I think I might actually pick this up at this price right now. On a separate note, Warner Brothers does a really good job with sales. Typically, they don't. I feel like as they progress, you don't always have that same sticker price. They actually do lower the price down, so the MSRP does start falling down gradually, and then the sales on top of it make it more attractive on top of that. So you look at like Mortal Kombat and like the Justice League type of fighting games, they always go down in price a lot. So I just really appreciate what Warner Brothers Interactive does with regards to how they treat sales. But Hogwarts Legacy is a game that I've always looked at, especially with better graphics cards. It is a looker. It looks fantastic. But also seeing the gameplay and stuff it was interesting to me, but I always have a huge backlog. So to buy a game day one is always do I have time for it today? Mm-hmm. So I bought Rebirth because there's 40. I bought it for $38 on GMG, and I was like, okay, I'm going to play that game day one. I'm happy with what Square Enix is doing, and I want to signal to them that I see what they're doing. So I'm going to give them some positive feedback here. I will buy as long as, the game's been on PS5, at least match PS5 sales, and they did a slightly better. So I was super happy with that, and I bought that, so I have that already lined up. But if you haven't, and you've been waiting to play Hogwarts Legacy, it's a fantastic game, got great reviews, and looks great. So that's going to be the one that I pick. It's at historical lows right now, so you can't go wrong.
By the way, you said CD Keys, but it's GameBillet, right? GameBillet?
GameBillet's the one that I put on the link, which also has it, but CD Keys has the same price. So if you prefer buying on either one, CD Keys typically gets their keys. They are not black market, so they're not reselling resellers' keys, which is super shady, and you should avoid those stores like Kinguin and G2G. Avoid those guys. What CD Keys does is they any place that has retail copies, they'll buy the retail copies cheaper, open them up, and then actually get the key out of it. So it's a gray market, but they're still buying the discs wholesale or whatever from other companies that couldn't get rid of them, and then reselling those. So that's how CD Keys always work. So the key that you get is not going to get over time. It's not going to be you got revoked because some guy bought hundreds of keys with a stolen credit card and sold them on G2G, and then you're not going to have that problem. So CD Keys, you're not going to have that issue. So either one, GameBillet or CD Keys, has the cheapest price for it right now. The digital deluxe version on CD Keys is $15. So basically I look at historical lows, and that's always a good identifier for me is I didn't play it right away, but I also got it at a really good deal, so I don't feel guilty about it.
I want to, not now, not on this episode, but sometime in the future, I want to have a conversation about those third-party stores and have this one's a safe one, this one's not a safe one, and just give people a definitive look at these things, because I know nothing about those stores. I always go straight to Steam or Humble Bundle. I use Steam, Humble Bundle, Green Man Gaming, and Fanatical, and those are the only ones that I've ever bought from.
All good ones to use,
right?
Yeah, they're all legit. Yeah,
but there's a lot of them out there that are not legit, and it's just it always gives me I don't know if I should.
Basically, if the store is selling some type of warranty on the CD key, it's shady. Oh yeah, just spend $4 more, and we guarantee if anything happens with this, we'll fix it. If they're charging you a warranty on a game key, avoid that place.
Okay.
I'll make it easier yet. Cary and I have recommended GG Deals in the past. If you're using GG.deals, they have a flag for key shops. And so I have key shops set to disabled. Key shops, I use this term interchangeably, but what they're calling key shops is what Cary's referring to as the shady ones. So if you disable key shops, then you'll only get the non-shady ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll revisit this maybe in January when we come back and talk about it as another topic. All right. Anybody have any other recommendations for games that are on sale? I only asked everybody to get one, but anybody have anything that they want to talk about before we move on?
I'm good.
All right. Rich, you wanted to talk about this. You had questions, I guess. So for those of you who are watching this and you're like, what the hell is he holding up? It is not a Switch 2. It is a model for a Switch 2.
Super Switch.
Okay, sorry. I love it. My theory, and I could be wrong about this, is that whoever is manufacturing the Super Switch, somebody had basically, they said, okay, well, let's leak this and we'll sell it to people. And like case makers like D-Brand, like iVolar, and I'm sure a bunch of other ones, they paid money. I'm guessing that they paid money for a model, and then they turned around and then they made their own model from the CAD files or whatever. And then they're like, okay, now we can start making our cases ahead of time so we can hit the ground running on day one. And iVolar reached out to me. They said, we've got a model of the Switch 2. Do you want it? And I said, I was super skeptical, not because I don't trust iVolar, because I've worked with them before. I like their products. But the reason I was skeptical is because I figured, well, it can't be real. Like, it's just going to be a 3D printed thing or whatever. But then they came and they sent this, and it's got like the Joy-Cons come off. They've got magnets in there. There's a glass screen on here. It doesn't turn on because it's not an actual thing, but it was way more interesting once I opened up that box and started looking at it. So, Rich, what were your questions that you want, or what did you want to talk about?
No real questions, but it's something that like we should talk about. We should bring up here.
Yeah.
First of all, congratulations on that video. It's killer, right?
Oh, thank you. and it was a fast video. I didn't have much, like there wasn't much work. I turned on 2 cameras and just kind of talked while I was holding this in my hand. So
yeah, but yeah, I guess just to cover the high points, it's bigger than the Switch, 8-inch screen versus 7-ish inch screen on the OLED. I think we said
the OLED has a 7-inch screen. The LCD Switch has a 6.3. I think it's 6.3.
Yeah. There's a mysterious C button on the right Joy-Con.
Yes, I will try and put that on screen while you're talking about it. Go ahead.
I know some people theories already are it's another capture button, which I don't know that makes sense.
It does not make sense to me.
Just the fact that it has a different labeling, right, is what doesn't make sense. The other big theory is that it's a way to wirelessly connect to the dock or to the TV so that you're basically streaming to your TV even with the Switch in your hands, which I don't know what that sort of technology would be exactly. Some sort of like Wii U kind of thing.
That doesn't make sense to me either. Why you wouldn't need a button for that? Like you could just have that go through UI. Why? Like this is something that you need to do all of the, like the only reason you put a button on something is because it's something that you want to do. Oh, I got to do this now. And it's one button needs to be fast. And you could just go, oh, menu, 3 buttons over, stream.
Sure.
So what they're thinking is it's like Miracast or something from the Switch to the dock.
Yes.
And then the dock is just relaying to the TV.
That's what it seems to be what people are thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same type of difference.
That stuff eats the battery so fast. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Even if that was the thing that it was, I don't think the C button would have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, they've had a C stick, right? And C controls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I could see the appeal, though, of having, hey, one button. You just push that button and it'll do this new magical thing. You know what I mean? Like that. I can see the appeal of that. I mean, you can make screenshots part of the UI, but they got a screenshot button. So there's always ways you can kind of make something magical, and that's probably what they're trying to do.
So you think it may be sort of connect wirelessly?
Yeah, I don't know. I can see it happening. I honestly...
Or do any of those buttons
I want to be surprised.
Do any of the buttons actually function, or are they like glued?
They're
just
like
stiff.
Yeah, they don't do anything. They just sit there. Like
so, like the analog stick doesn't move.
No, it doesn't move. Like
it's like glued stiff.
Yes, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that you had mentioned in there was that those other triggers on there Electromagnet doesn't really make much sense to me.
I think that the magnet is just to slap them in, and then there's like probably a locking mechanism that would.
It's got to be a physical locking mechanism, is what I would think.
Because I would not trust the magnets.
And do you see anything on the inside of the Joy-Con to see any type of latch, a latching mechanism?
There we go. So right here,
it would be on the inside of that, right?
Yeah, you probably have something in there
that would like hold it.
Yeah,
after it's engaged. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can't see it, but I would think that seems like a really large button to disengage. That's like a big trigger. They had such a tiny little thing on the original Switch that having such a giganto one, maybe they had a lot of complaints. Maybe they had a lot of complaints like, I don't know how to take this off, and people just ripping them off. Interesting.
I think I ripped mine off a few times.
Yeah, it's interesting. What's curious is like I went to the Nintendo launch event for the Switch, and there was Nintendo employees there, and the stupid little kickstand that they had on the original Switch. They were like, look at this, and the guy just ripped it off, and he was like, you see that? And I was like, oh, okay, and then he just like put it back in. I was like, oh, okay, so it's like for kids. Kids might just rip that off, but you can just easily put it back in. But then they realized that it was just a crappy kickstand, and they're like, let's just put a big thing here, guys, so that we can do a bunch more.
This one has the new design for the kickstand.
Yeah, the Switch, and I like that design better because you can also, it's like the Surface, right? The Surface had that variable hinge, and it's just a much better design, and it's way more rock solid. So I like that overall. But 8 inches, I don't think that we directly knew. Did we know that from the leaks previous?
I don't think so.
Sure. No. There's been so many leaks; it's hard to keep.
And
track.
have you directly measured diagonally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in my video, I pulled out a ruler.
Yeah, so you did 8 inches. 8 inches is a solid size. I think that's What about the Joy-Cons? I don't. Did you do a Joy-Con matchup directly?
I did in the video, but talk about what you think, and I can go grab another Joy-Con while I go get it.
Yeah, so it's certainly bigger, right? So
so I never really had a problem with. What's interesting to me is with the Switch, my hands would get cramped up on a 3DS. And on the Switch, my hands never got cramped up as much. And that vertical space that the Switch has was an allowance somewhere in my hands where my hands wouldn't cramp up as much. And I found that to be fascinating. So, oh wow, yeah. So it's even larger.
Yeah, my hands did cramp up on a Switch.
On the Switch,
not immediately, but if I were playing 30 minutes a day for 5 days, after 2 or 3 days, I would feel it.
Yeah, that I wonder, like ergonomic wise, it looks like it's significantly better.
Yeah. I think I disagree. I don't think it's ergonomically better because it's still flat. Like you look at it, it's still flat. There's nothing to hold on to.
Right. I never necessarily needed something to hold on to. I do prefer it overall, but it's not something I found that just having vertical space and just a bit wider is enough of a difference that as an allowance. Again, because I've had small devices, and small devices when my hands, like I'm forcing my thumb in, is where this pain point gets like right there.
Yeah. You're right. I just held this in my hand. And I was like, yeah, this is the real Switch.
Right.
I was like, okay, this is way less comfortable than this one
is. That's basically what I'm getting to is even though you don't have those bumps there, which are like the super ergonomic friendly ones, is that I suspect that I'm going to like this a whole bunch.
Same.
I'm curious. I feel like everyone's like, oh, it should have a 1080p screen. I still feel like they should do 720p. I don't think that they should do 1080p. It doesn't make any sense to do 1080p.
They're even talking about 4K 30, right, for the docked mode.
Well, when you're docked, right? Like once that chip in there, we know. Well, based on the leaks, like who knows, right? What's going to happen? But based on the leaks of what's possible there, it is quite performant. You're just going to chew through a lot of power, so it wouldn't be something that you would do on battery.
Right.
And if you look at the size of it compared to the original Switch, the battery on the original Switch is 16 watt hours. Okay, like you don't have a bunch of space in there, so maybe we're gonna have 20 watt hour on the new one. So if we have 22 watt, that's still half of the battery from the original Steam Deck. So 100% they're going to downclock that chip in a handheld state to hell and back.
Yeah.
That thing is going to get 3 to 5 hours of battery life, which means that the whole thing is going to be taking 4 watts total with the screen on and everything.
Yeah.
So this thing's going to be sipping power. On a handheld state, that's why it makes no sense to me to have like 1080p. Everyone's like, oh, DLSS. I'm like, guys, chill, hang tight for a second. Like, this is just going to be a waste on a handheld.
Yeah.
And 720p is still. I mean, look at Luigi's Mansion. Look at any Nintendo game on a Switch. They look amazing.
They do.
So I never really bought the idea, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe bigger number better is going to prevail here.
It'll be
That's the
interesting.
thing
'Cause,
is, go ahead.
I was going to say, 720p, I can see that difference on a screen between that and 1080p, and whether or not people will still be good with that, like, who knows, And
Right, yeah, you can see it, but it's in terms of performance to hit that is such a giant leap in terms of what is required to hit that I don't personally believe that Nintendo would make that choice. Because Nintendo's already been historically making less, like they're just like been pulling it back. And when you dock it, you can go up.
Yeah.
For sure, 100%, you can see the difference in that resolution, but it's a harder target to hit.
Yeah.
It is.
No, it is. And yeah, I think maybe just having a bigger jump in docked mode might be the thing that sets it apart. It's like, yeah, it's a handheld state, but when you plug it in, like, you will see a huge difference. And maybe that'll be a big driving factor for it.
Especially
It'll
if
be
it has, what is it, DLSS from NVIDIA?
Right. You're everyone expects that to be the case, and we don't know how, like, is every game just going to have it? It might likely have it, but we don't know, like, what those tensor cores at what clock are going to really, like, how this is all going to shake out is still a big question mark. So it's going to be interesting. If they do go 1080p, I wouldn't rule it out. But I feel, I was going to say anti-ethical. It feels counter to what Nintendo normally does. Nintendo really tries to hammer home, like, okay, we're not going to go for performance. We're going to try to make a good experience. This thing's not going to get hot. It's not going to be loud, and you're going to get fantastic battery life. And developers are just going to have to make it work inside of this scope.
What I would anticipate. Sorry, I thought you were done. Go ahead.
I am done. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, what I would anticipate, what I would do if I were them, not necessarily what I would anticipate. I would put a 720p screen in this, or at the most 900p.
Right.
And then when it's docked, have it go at a higher resolution, maybe 1080p or something like that, and an upscale to 1440p. Upscaling all the way to 4K from 1080p, you're going to have a bunch of artifacting and stuff like that in even with DLSS, which is better than all of the other ones in my opinion. I think that, like, that upscaling from 1080p to 1440p, that's possible, and it would still look good.
900p has been a really fascinating one for me. I feel like 900p is like an untapped potential in terms of if you're going to make a display specific for a handheld. I really like the idea of 900p as a compromise of improving image clarity. Like, you can definitely get a better image clarity and not have to really struggle as much to go to 1080p, because even just 900p is a big help from going to 1080p. So it's going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to what eventually happens.
Did you guys have any more questions about the model before we move on?
No, I'm one of those where I'm not super curious about it. I'm really interested to see what they do when they announce it. I don't want to know early. I want to, it's like when, Dune 2 came out. Even though I'd read the book, I didn't want to see any trailers. I just wanted to go in blind. So I kind of want to go in blind with the Switch too.
Too bad. It's 8
Yeah,
inches.
sorry, I didn't mean to show this to you. Russ, I'm going to, here, I'm holding this thing up. Just look directly at it, and we'll see if I can flash your memory. All right, moving on to something that we don't have to worry about spoilers for at all, and that's this little guy. This is the Anbernic RG34XX. I mean, first off, it runs... Ooh, I like the green better than the purple.
I like purple better than green.
Purple?
Yeah.
You guys keep saying purple. Do you mean
It's
blue?
indigo.
No, it's blue.
Actually,
Oh,
on the
yeah,
website,
blue, right,
it's
yeah.
called blue, isn't it?
Right.
It's called blue for
It is
Anbernic.
not blue.
What's funny
that
is
is
my
purple.
box that came, I don't know if mine was different, whatever, they put a little piece of tape over blue and then wrote indigo on it, like a handwritten. But then the other one had the blue on it still. So they're
Nice.
just fixing it midstream anyway.
That's funny.
That's so funny.
So first off, it's going to run all the same games that run on every other XX, so we don't really have to talk about performance or anything like that. For this, I feel like the only thing to discuss is the form factor and what we think of the controls and that kind of thing. Obviously, it's meant to mimic the original GBA, which I loved the original GBA, but I don't know if I have rose-colored glasses when it comes to the GBA, because I don't love this. I don't love this because the D-pad is... I don't know what you guys thought of it, because I have not had a chance to watch your videos. I hate this D-pad. It's awful. The B and A buttons are fine, and then they've got the extra buttons on there. And sure, having these extra triggers on the back, whatever. I don't care, because this isn't going to play games that need all of that. But okay, if that's fine. Russ, what do you think about the D-pad on this thing?
Yeah, so I'm not a huge fan. I called it imperfect because I think that it is prone to false diagonals, like just pressing up, down, left, and right, you will hit the others as well. And it's to the point where you see it in menu navigation. And that's where I was like, okay, this is a problem. You know, if I'm trying to just go in my Super Nintendo list and I'm just going down and all of a sudden it shifts over to my PlayStation list because I hit right on accident, like that's where it kind of becomes an issue. Playing games, Contra Test didn't pass it, you know. Fighting games was hard because the D-pad's so small that like the tolerances for hitting the diagonal when you want to are kind of tough. Like to hit all three, like when you're trying to do your, Hadoukens or whatever, it's tight. And so it's one of those D-pads I think that we got to wait a couple months and let people break it in and see how that experience is. Because I've seen so many people like, oh yeah, let's compare these two against, the 20-year-old version D-pad that I've been mashing on for 20 years. Like we don't have a good direct comparison. We don't have a brand new GBA to compare it to. So who knows? Maybe they did get it right and we just need to break them in. It's hard to say. For me, I found the only thing I really love about this is just making it a Game Boy Advance console. Like just...
Yep.
Like I made a whole video about it where I boot into Game Boy Advance list and you just go and start playing your games. And that's been really great for me. But it's a one-trick pony at that point. I mean, you can still play the other stuff, but the screen gets really small when you play 4x3 on it.
Cary?
Yes. Yeah, it's the same exact. That's basically my whole review wrapped up is it's so trying to be an authentic GBA experience, and they do a really good job while changing up a few different things. So I had a Game Boy Advance. I imported mine, and then is that a cat?
Yeah, I was just pointing at it for the audience. They always get a kick out of the cat climbing on the couch back there.
I bought my import one, and I bought F-Zero for it. From an import shop that I used to get everything from early as possible. They also had an N64 like months in advance before. So I was always going there. I was like, oh my goodness, I got to get Super Mario 64. So I've always used that place to like buy stuff. And there was, at the time, unfortunately, I was like, how could they still do this silly thing with not having a backlight on there? And honestly, someone actually got so upset about it that they made it, it was called an afterburner, made by a company, and you had to solder it on and all this other stuff. So I actually did all the work to do that on my original Game Boy Advance. So I still have, it's a front lit display is what it winds up being, but it was fantastic because it didn't really affect battery life all that much. And it was self-contained. It wasn't this crazy apparatus that you're putting on top of it. It wasn't an accessory. It was bolted into it. So I loved it. And then literally like, I don't know, maybe like a few months later, Nintendo was like GBASP. And I was like, finally, I guess someone had to do something to show you guys the light. And then that company wound up going out of business from the GBASP just existing. And I love the SP. And that's basically, that whole story arc is what I was going through in my review. I was showing off my original GBA with the Afterburner mod compared to the backlit one with a nicer display. And it's, just giant difference. It's such a nice way to look at GBA games. And I was like, you know what? Let me actually run Nintendo, because there was emulators written for the Game Boy Advance. So I was like, let's play the Nintendo emulator for Game Boy Advance. So I was playing Nintendo games on the original Game Boy Advance compared to like just running Nintendo games. And, just showcasing the back and forth and doing some other stuff. So it's like, when you look at this, the real reason that you're getting this is for, if you want to have something that is as authentic to an original GBA as possible while having some additional niceties. Those additional L2 and R2 are I just called them hotkey buttons in my review, because that's all they, and it works fine for that. It works fine for that, especially if you only care to look at this as a GBA. You're only ever going to use left and right trigger anyway, so you're not really going to be using those. And so from a lot of different perspectives of how I looked at that, I was just like, okay, this is nice. The D-pad looks slightly larger, but it still has all the same types of issues. And yeah, it's just for people that want that. Ultimately, in the end of the review, I was just like, I would still just recommend the 35 XDX SP, because that, out of all the XX models, that still is the one I recommend the most.
Yeah.
So that's basically.
Did you guys catch the roller coaster ride about the screen about this thing?
120 hertz, yeah.
Yeah, so
that
it,
one, right?
It
Talk
runs
about
at 110 hertz, and so then Gamma Squeeze, who's like a community developer, and he gets these early. He started poking with it, and he figured out how to set it to 120 hertz, which allows him to do black frame insertion. So you can play Game Boy Advance BFI on a $70 handheld, which is crazy. But then, like, the roller coaster continued, and he figured out how to do it with the 35XX SP. So, and he sent all the information to the custom firmware developer. So MuleOS and Newly and stuff. These could potentially be options in the next couple of months, where it's like, turn on BFI for, Super Nintendo games on your SP, and that's going to be crazy. Like, in terms of motion clarity, and like, it's a tiny CRT at that point. Like, I can't wait for this. So super excited. Who knows what it's going to do as far as battery life and stuff, but I'm here for it. So,
I mean, if you're just playing like Nintendo, like if you're just playing like 8 and 16-bit games, which is the ones that you want the BFI for anyway, those they don't really take all that much battery to run those games. So I think that, yeah, you'll obviously take a battery hit, but if you just plug in, I mean, unlike us where we have 4,000 of these freaking handhelds and we got to rotate through, I got to charge this one today. Like if you just have one and you just plug it in every night, you're usually going to be good for the day, I think.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, and even if you're losing battery to BFI, it's a much better experience. I'm pissed that RetroArch has removed BFI on Android, because I've got the Pocket Evo, and I can't turn on. It's got 165 hertz refresh rate screen, and I can't turn on BFI on that, because they turned it off because I guess people were complaining, and I was like,
you can turn it on. You got to adjust the configuration file manually. It's possible. The problem is that Android in general, and with those screens, they change the refresh rate so often that it causes flickering on Android, and so it is not a great time on Android. But it's worth experimenting. I'm going to do that. I have the Pocket Evo as well. I'm going to force it and see what happens.
And I will watch your video to learn how to do it. All right. So the one thing I would say about this is I know that they were going for authenticity. I just wish they made it a little bit bigger so that you could have a bigger screen and a bigger D-pad. And that would have made it 1,000 times. Because they have good D-pads. Like Anbernic has made good D-pads. This D-pad is a dumpster fire D-pad. I hate it. And it's because it's because they were trying to be authentic. And they did it. They made it very authentic, which is a good and a bad thing, depending on who you talk to. All right.
But still, I mean, so just one last note is that, like, it's still at $70 to be able to buy a thing that can play all the Game Boy Advance games at a 3x native resolution. Pretty crazy. Like, that is still like, it's still a good value in itself. And for that slice of people who like loved the GBA and love that one specifically, have all those core memories with it, this is kind of like a dream come true. It's just there's an entire world of people with other experiences, and they have to contend with it. Like, I never had this thing, and so I have to like figure out how this falls into my own like kind of wheelhouse, because I don't have that nostalgia.
Right. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I loved the GBA line, and I moved over to the SP because of the backlight and all the other stuff, and it was by far my absolute favorite handheld, like, in that era. I liked it over the PSP. I liked it over a bunch of other stuff, and the SP was just my absolute favorite. So what's funny is, right, because like Anbernic should have followed the schedule correctly, right? They should have made this one first, and then the 35. But I can understand why Anbernic lit the fire under their seat, because they were afraid of Miu showing up with theirs. So they were like, we got to come out with this now. And I I look at the Mii with the 2 analog sticks on the bottom, and I'm like, that doesn't even look good. And I don't even get it. But whatever. Like, it's still not out. It's kind of like in a weird space. So I feel like Anbernic just completely ate their lunch. I don't know how well that's gonna fly when that happens, but we'll see.
I would really like Miu to, like, I feel like they shipped the Miu Mini Plus and then they haven't really done much since. And I would really like more competition for Anbernic. I mean, Anbernic is obviously competition with themselves, like crazy. Like they're just shipping device after device after device. Like Russ is, you can't see, but just to his right, there's a mountain of handhelds, and he has to like claw his way through them. Like there's been a cave collapse, and he's got to, in order to leave his office, he's got to do all that because there's so many of them. But most of them are Anbernic, and I would like somebody to compete with them a little bit more aggressively.
I think that what I love about Miu Mini is like just the Onion CFW.
Yes.
Like that whole system of saving your game and showing you the screenshot of where you were and picking up right after that was such a super nice touch that I just like that alone is the reason why I like it. But for the Miu, the original Miu had like the triggers on the back were just terrible. I hated them. Yeah, but I just use them as like hotkeys and stuff, right? So it was like, for what it was worth, I just loved it. It was super slim, uber pocketable, and something that you can jump straight back into super fast. And it's, truth be told,
its standby battery is insane.
Right. Yeah. Truth be told, what I'm looking forward to the most is that the slide out gamepad that is going to be for any phone, that Kickstarter that's starting next month.
MCon.
Talk about it. Start us off.
I'll let Russ, because Russ actually has one. The prototype.
So I have the old prototype. Yeah, so Josh is the name of the guy who runs this thing, and he's like 20 or 21 or something. And he got a hold of me. He basically posted on Reddit when it first came out, and then I made a comment. I was like, "This is awesome. I'd love to test it if you have any extras or whatever." And so he got a hold of me, sent it over to me. This was like 2 months ago or whatever. And so I did it, and I gave him just a ton of feedback. Hey, think about this. And so we did a bunch of like Discord, like video conferences, between the two of us and stuff. And the number one thing I was like, fix these joysticks, like think about this kind of stuff. And so he found the joysticks, like the Retroid joysticks, and that's what they're putting in these. And so they were able to find it. They found the warehouse or whatever, the manufacturer in China doesn't speak English. Like they found those guys and were like, we want to buy, thousands of these or whatever. And they got it. And so that's super cool. And then they came out with that slide out. They got a grip now that you can kind of flap out. And so they showed me that like a month or two ago. And I thought I'm like, yeah, keep going in that direction. That's like super cool. Because it doesn't take up extra pocket space, but it will give you that grip if you want it,
Exactly, yeah. Also, that spring out action is super cool.
Yeah. It's very cool looking.
Yeah, it's like very sidekick action.
And it's now universal. Like, so
exactly
the magnetic thing right here, like it just sticks out just a little bit, so you can put any phone with it, even with a camera bump, you can just pop it on. So your Android, your iPhone, or whatever, all should work at least. And so really looking forward to that idea as well. They're going to be at CES, so I'll see him in just a couple weeks.
Another reason why I wish I can go to CES. Like it's just like this is like the worst one to miss.
Oh man.
And he got picked up by like a company too. Like that's the cool thing too, is like he it was just him, just doing all this stuff, and then he had like a couple people helping or whatever, and then he like there's a nearby company that makes accessories, and they got a hold, and they were like, let's do this together. And so I'm sure they're getting their cut or whatever, but he's got that backing now, like an entire company who's done all those projects already, and so they're the ones that like helped him find those joysticks, for example. So super cool.
By the way, if you scroll down through the Verge story, Russ's video's at the bottom.
Nice.
It's on there.
Nice.
Sweet.
What were you going to say, Cary?
No, it's just like that Drake GIF when he's like showing people the screen, like, oh, slide out gamepad. Of course. Who would have had that idea?
Yeah.
You.
I can't think of anybody else.
I mean, kudos to Josh, right? Because like he was just like, F this. He knew it, and he was just like, I'm just gonna do it because no one's doing it. Yeah. And I wasn't gonna do that, and I'd rather just complain out loud.
The thing is, the prototype.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the prototype was already really good, right? But those additions, whether they were in conversation with you or even just aside from that, whatever he did, all of these additions with the fly out grips, the slide out hinge, all of it was really, really good. So I can see, I can imagine that I think that a lot of people will be excited about this.
You know what's going to happen is it's going to be the Afterburner all over again. He's going to come out with the slide-out gamepad, and people are like, oh, slide-out gamepad, of course. We'll just make a phone that does this. And then all of a sudden, there's going to be like phones that do it directly and are a bit thinner and more designed. And it's like, oh, this is not going to slingshot my phone.
Yeah.
Sony Xperia.
Right.
Check it out how cool this is.
To clarify my end, so I want like zero credit for any of this stuff. Like I like literally just been like cheering from the sidelines and then saying yeah that kind of thing. So like I gave a couple ideas and stuff, but like he's doing all the work. Like I'm just here to just kind of help promote. And I think about like I don't know what you guys were doing when you were 20, 21, but I was like I just barely joined the Navy. I was trying to figure out life, and this kid's like, let's just change a whole industry because I didn't like the way that Minecraft played.
Yeah.
Right.
It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Last story. I don't know anything about this. Rich, you added this. You said, well, we should probably talk about this thing. And I go, I don't even know what this is. So
it's not the type of thing we normally talk about, but it's big enough in the tech sphere, but also just in stuff happening right now. So this is a video expose on the Honey extension for Chrome. Right. So the video is called Exposing the Honey Influencer Scam, and I highly recommend it to everybody. Apparently it's part 1 of a 3-part series. So I'm guessing you're going to ask, what's Honey?
Yes, I am. I have no clue. This is all news to me.
So Honey is a Chrome extension for shopping. So you know how you go to gap.com and you have a text box for a coupon code. And so then you probably go out and Google coupon codes for Gap. You find a website that with, some expired codes, you paste them until you find one that works, and you have now a 20%, discount on Gap.
Are you watching me? Because this seems like a thing that has happened in my house. And
literally everyone has done this, right?
Okay.
So Honey is supposed to like circumvent all of that, where it finds the coupon codes for you and then just gives you the best deal possible, right? So this video exposes at least 2 parts of this that are a scam. So number 1, allegedly, everything is alleged. We're not legally liable. I'm not a lawyer. So the first part is that Honey steals the affiliate link from wherever you were. It overrides that affiliate link. So if you clicked from Linus Tech Tips and you clicked for a book bag, not the Linus book bag, some other book bag on Amazon, and you put it in your cart, and then you see the Honey extension and it tries to find a coupon code for you, and you click the button and say, okay, I got it. You didn't find a deal for me. That's fine. Understood. If you click that button, it replaces your affiliate, Linus's affiliate cookies with their affiliate cookies.
Assholes.
Exactly. So that's one thing. The second thing is that it's false advertising, allegedly. So all of the you get the best deal is not true, because they partner with businesses to give you a deal, but not necessarily the best deal. So the idea is that they're trying to convert more customers, and customers are cost conscious, so they're going to want to find a deal. So you give them a Honey 5, so you get 5% off, to keep them from doing everything I said at the beginning, to keep them from actually Googling discount codes. And
finding the 10% that was on somebody else's thing. Okay.
Exactly.
Wow.
And he provides good evidence for all of this, including like their own marketing materials and things like that. So yeah, really good. I already didn't use Honey, and a lot of our audience is going to be like, anything that's free, we already have that sort of knowledge that we are the product, as opposed to being, sold the product. But nonetheless, I think it was extremely informative. And if you don't use Honey, I'm sure you know someone that does.
So here's my part of it. And I thought everyone already knew that this was the case. But I also have come from I don't know. Have you guys ever used Fat Wallet?
I remember that, but
So
I've never
Fat
used
Wallet
it.
was back in the early 2000s. And the whole thing that Fat Wallet did was,
Hurts my
hey,
back.
affiliates exist, right? How do we get people to use our affiliate stuff? Well, how about we share the affiliate? So if the affiliate is 5%, we're going to give you 2.5%, and we're going to get 2.5%. So you get cash back on all of your purchases that you make when you would go to Fat Wallet.
Right.
So they would share the affiliate with people. And that was what Fat Wallet did. Now Slick Deals does that. Fat Wallet became Rakuten or whatever because they got bought out by someone else. So Rakuten is their own cashback. So when you see it says, hey, you can get cash back on this, when you click activate, you are saying, Rakuten, be the affiliate link for this because you're going to get money and then you're going to give me a portion of whatever we agreed on. You said 1%, you said 4%, you said whatever. That's what it's going to be. And that's what I get as cash back. So all of these buttons that I always clicked on, I knew I was replacing whatever affiliate link I was going onto. It wasn't like this giant list of affiliates. It was whoever was the there. So it's always been a thing to me. That's why, like, for like affiliate stuff, I was like, well, aren't people just going to like replace these with a bunch of? For me, affiliate stuff has always never been a thing. But unless there was like something that was pre-baked into it with like some giant promo, like enter code Fox and get 10% off, and I would get, something from that as well. Like those made sense to me because it gave a coupon off to the people using it.
Yeah.
Whereas I was just going to be the only one that was receiving money out of it. But like never made, like I would just be, I always presumed that people were like, if they had a little pop-up that would show up, that they were just going to click that button and I was going to be obliterated out of there regardless. Like AliExpress Rakuten has a button, says AliExpress cash back and get 4% back. And especially during the holidays, it's large. So I always assumed that everyone knew that already. So when he came out with this, I was like, well, of course.
So you're both
I just
not
want to
alone.
interrupt real quick before you guys.
Yeah.
I just realized my camera's at 5%, so I'm going to swap out my battery. I'm not gone. Just keep going.
Okay. So you're both not alone, and also you're in good company, but also there are plenty of people to whom this is new, including myself, right? But an interesting anecdote from that video was the Linus Tech Tips thing, right? So like Linus Tech Tips had done over 100 Honey integrations, right? And then just suddenly stopped and didn't do any more. And what this person had uncovered is that Linus Tech Tips found out that this is this is how Honey worked. And then they stopped doing those integrations. So, they posted on the LTT forums about what Honey was doing and why they basically stopped their partnership with Honey. This person, I keep forgetting his name. I'll find it, but basically offered some gentle criticism that like, he feels like LTT should have brought even more visibility to this rather than just posted on their forums. But either way, I think the point is that like, even LTT did not know until 100 plus integrations, but on the same token, they know now, right? And they didn't necessarily expose that to kind of the rest of the audience.
I mean, so they got paid directly for doing integrations.
Yes.
So they got money for advertising Honey stuff. So I always that's kind of, part and parcel. Like, I don't know. It's an interesting case. I'm not really of the mind that Honey is trying to save the person money ultimately. And for me, that makes the most sense as a consumer. I'm always going to advocate for people to save the most money possible. If I have an affiliate link to AliExpress, but then Rakuten's like, hey, save 8%, and I don't get the affiliate anymore, I'm like, yeah, sure, go ahead, do the 8%. I would do the same thing. Mm-hmm. I understand that I'm not going to have it all the time.
I'm not. So I don't necessarily disagree. I think there's a lot to say about the affiliate side of it. And I'll take back what I said. I do disagree, but I don't think that's nearly as important as like the consumer side of it. The part where they say they get you the best deal, except
even if
that's
there's
not.
Nothing. But right. Yeah, nothing's happening there, right? Like, there is
that's
no
the part I don't like. And
exactly.
My own personal experience, like I was mostly offline until 2020 and the pandemic and stuff. Like I didn't even have like a YouTube account where I subscribed to channels or any of that kind of stuff. Not until then. And I was like, okay, let me like try this stuff out. And I was watching Linus Tech Tips, and I was like, oh, what is this honey thing? Like, I like money, you know? And so I installed it, and I found that the deals were so much worse than what I could just Google myself, like I'd always been doing, you know? And so I just uninstalled it at that point. But it's interesting, though, that they kind of kept going with it, and that people, were kind of suckered into this false thought that, this is the best deal possible, when it's really they're just trying to hijack other people's affiliate income, which kind of sucks.
So from that point of view, 100%, because they're not really doing anything for the consumer, where at that point you should literally just be using Slick Deals cashback or Rakuten cashback, because you literally get cashback on those. Like, I use it all the time, and I don't know, I have like hundreds of dollars that I've gotten back from using those cashback services. So those don't help. Well, Rakuten now does like honey-like things where it's like, hey, go over to this site to buy it. I'm like, no. I'm on this site. I'm buying here. Tell me what cashback you have. Yeah. And that I don't care what else you're doing. But then I will activate it if so. Like for instance, I got the Meta Ray-Bans, those Ray-Ban ones.
Yeah.
They were 20% off. Bill, have you replaced the battery on your thing yet?
It won't let me turn the camera back on because we're recording. I didn't realize that was going to be an issue. I should have swapped the batteries.
Let's
before
just call
we
him
started.
El Gato for the rest of them.
El Gato.
El Gato.
I am the cat.
So MetaQuest, this is Black Friday, right? So they had 20% off. So it was down to $240. And then Rakuten was like, hey, we'll give you 15% cash back. I was like, score. Like, I got 20% off and 15% cash back on top of that. I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to do that. But that was from Rakuten. And Rakuten has 50% back from me. I don't know what they got out of it, right? I don't care what they got out of it. All I know is that I got whatever, $20, $25 after it. The end result was that I got them for like $200 and some odd dollars when they're normally $300. And tomorrow I'm actually going to this place in Staten Island that they make prescription lenses for the MetaQuest. Yeah, nice. So they're going to replace them for me, and I love them, and I got a great deal on them. Don't install honey. Screw honey. We all don't like honey. Instead, find another cashback service that is
over here googling Rakuten.
Rakuten is the one I use, but there actually is one website that lists all of the cashback sites, so you can pick and choose which cashback one you want. So you're like, I don't want to use Rakuten. I want to use Slick Deals. I want to use something else. And I forget what the name of the website is, but they actually list all of the competitors. So if you go to Best Buy, you say, I'm shopping at Best Buy, and here's all the cash back. And sometimes you'll see Rakuten is like 1%, and this other company will be 3%. You're like, 3% cash back. I'll do that one. So you basically do your shopping, but there are ways where you can just be like, no, I'm buying from this store. What is the maximum cash back that I can get? And I think it's like Piggy Bank or something. I forget what the name is. Let me look it in the background.
While he's looking for that, what I am going to say is after we finish this segment, we are going to do a quick run through of your votes for our game awards that we did last episode. If you haven't seen last episode, go back and see it. But after he tells us whatever he was just Googling, I'm going to shut the recording down and start it back up so that we can do that, and I'll have my camera working. Cary, what'd you find?
It's called Be Frugal. Be Frugal is the name of the website. Unfortunately, it looks like you have to sign in now before you can get the information.
Beef Frugal sounds like something you'd order at a restaurant. I'll have the Beef Frugal.
Be Frugal, once you sign in, they actually Walmart, Best Buy, whatever, and then they'll show you what all of the competitors are doing cashback-wise on. So then you can just pick and choose who you want to get the affiliate link out of it, but you get the maximum back yourself. And I love that way. But truthfully, I've been doing this forever, so I always presume people do the same thing I do. I'm like, of course people are going to get money back. Who doesn't? Who wouldn't? Definitely use these services. They're really, I've gotten lots back. Let me see how much money I've gotten back from Rakuten.
I'd hate to see how many logins you have, though. Because each of those are going to require a username. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's the thing that bothers me. It's like, I don't want to have to remember all that stuff.
Yeah, I just kept. I always had Fat Wallet, and I've always been loyal to Fat Wallet. So I've been a member, at least for Rakuten. It says I've been a member since 2012, and my lifetime cashback savings is $750. So I've gotten $750 back to me using these services.
That is one ROGLIX.
Correct.
Yeah. So like, I mean, hey, money's money, and
It is.
gains are gains, right? So don't.
sure.
You just gotta. It's all about the up and to the right. The graph goes up and to the right.
Up and to the right, which is what we're going to do right now as we switch over to the NerdNest Awards. And we're back. You can call me El Gato for the rest of the episode. And, we are now going to talk about the NerdNest Awards. Last episode, go back and watch it if you missed it. We nominated our own NerdNest Awards, and then we made a Google form, where you all could vote and tell us what the actual winners were. So I'm going to bring this up right here. Everybody can't see it, obviously, because I don't want to try and click on things and have weird stuff happen. So I'll screenshot stuff and put it in afterwards. But we have Best Modern Hardware, where we nominated the OLED Steam Deck, the eGPU from Minis Forum, also B-Link, I guess, and then the ROG Ally X, and this was a blowout. 62% picked the OLED Steam Deck. Is anybody at all surprised?
Not even a little bit.
I mean, it's barely even squeezed in as a category, though. That's the funny thing. He's like, we're like, oh, I'll throw it on here, even though it came out last year. They got the white one, so it technically has one.
Right.
That's great.
What percent do you think went to the eGPU?
1.
Yeah, I'd say 1 or 2.
It was actually 5.6.
Oh,
not bad.
Wow.
Proud
I
of
think
you
it really
guys.
just encompasses
I'm proud of you guys.
Yeah. It really encompasses all just the eGPUs in general, so that makes sense. Yeah.
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 All right. So then next we had Best Retro hardware. We had the Neo Pocket DMG, which is somewhere here in the office. I think it's way over there. The RG35, I'll pull a Cary and say XDX, which is, no, I'm not saying that. Double X SP.
Like
no,
mid-flight.
never mind.
Actually, I feel disgusting saying that.
Screw that. I spit. Then the Retroid Pocket 5. And the Neo Pocket DMG got 12.9%, which is way higher than I thought it would get, because that is a very expensive device, and it is a very, very niche device. Then the runner-up is the Retroid Pocket 5 with 41.8%, and the winner is the RG35XX SP with 45.3%. I thought that one would have way bigger numbers.
Well, Retroid 5 is really nice. It is a really nice device. So I can respect it. I can respect that. Like it was that close. I like that.
One PSA, and I got to make a post about this. So I traded my Neo DMG, the DMG one, for a white one with somebody else in the community, and they sent it over. And the white one sucks. The plastic material on it is that typical Neo slick and also smudgy. Even though it's white, I can see all the smudges on it, and it just feels like it's going to slip out of your hands. Like it's got. Like I'm gonna have to tell this guy that we're gonna trade back. Like that's how bad it is,
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we did a downgrade upgrade thing where I was like, I'm willing to take this 1 terabyte that I have and get a 256 or 512, whatever his is, and swap it out. I'm willing to take the cut because I want to have white with a black bezel. And now I'm like, no, this isn't worth it. And so he's going to CES, so I'm gonna have to be like, hey, bring your DMG. Yeah. So. Yeah, I feel bad, but it went from being something that was like one of my favorites of the year to being basically unplayable for me. Like I'm just like, this is so much worse of an experience, and it's kind of crazy. Anyway,
so if you're in the market for an Neo Pocket DMG, you like don't get the cheap one. You got to get the most expensive one. That's terrible.
The worst. It's the worst thing in the world because the black and the whites are the ones that are actually affordable, and you got to pay I don't know what it is, $500 for the DMG one, which is the one that actually feels premium. And so,
700, Russ, 700.
Yikes!
I hate that. I hate that so much. I mean, it's
that's
so
how much
wrong,
money Cary's made from Rakuten.
Yeah,
that's right. He could have gotten one.
12 years of logging into Rakuten just to get a DMG.
I'd rather an LAX. But that's just me. What do I know?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, I got you.
It is one of those where it's like, hey, I took a ride in a Lamborghini and it was amazing. Let me tell you how awesome it was. Do I recommend you buying a Lamborghini? No. That's kind of where I am with this kind of thing where it's like, yes, it is amazing, but I can't recommend it.
Not for that price. Okay, so next category, we had biggest surprise of the year. If you're wondering why we only had 3 for the first, I think it's obvious why we only had 3 for the first one. For the second one, Rich doesn't do retro games, so he didn't have one to nominate.
I do retro games. I don't do retro hardware. Yeah, I don't like multiple things, right? Because I'll never just like rotate my things, right? So when I retro game, I just do it on my LIX. Like I don't need a
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I like something that's small and easier to transport than bringing something
You
big.
should have said the LAX for your retro hardware.
Oh,
I should have. Yeah. Steam Deck. Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll have to run the poll again. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Biggest surprise of the year. This is a game that came out this year that we didn't anticipate being as good as it was. We had Animal Well, and then Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Balatro, or apparently that's called Balatro is the official way to say it.
No.
Isn't that what I heard? I heard that somewhere.
You heard wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also not Switch 2. It's Super Switch.
No. Okay. So I don't know if Local Thunk has changed his mind on this, but the official word was that it doesn't matter. You can say whatever you want. It doesn't matter. He has said both ways, although I think he tends to say Balatro, but his official word is say whatever you want. So I'm sticking about. No. As far as I can tell, he sounds American. I think he probably I
heard he was from Canada.
Oh.
You know what? I think you're right. He is from Canada.
I think they said it at the Game Awards.
Yeah. So Balatro to me sounds more like
Canadian,
other side of the pond.
Regal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Balatro,
the valve shift, the great valve shift of the 1800s or whatever, when everything changed for us.
Yeah.
And then Parking Garage Rally Circuit. And Parking Garage Rally Circuit didn't do too hot, 1.9%.
You guys got
Animal Well came in third with 16.3%. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle came in second with 34.7%.
That's high.
Wow.
The big winner, though, was Balatro. With 47.1%.
Wow.
So there's the biggest surprise of the year is Balatro.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, it came out of nowhere, right? Like I mean, it struck thunder because at the time, card games were like, oh, we have to make card games, and he made a card game. It was like, all right, there's a card game, and I was like, whoa.
It's weird, right? Because roguelite deck builder had become like a meme, like the way like vampire, what's the Vampire Survivors genre, whatever
it's
that
like
is.
a horde, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever that's become a meme, right? Like the same way dual stick shooter became a meme a while ago. But like Balatro is just different, right? Like it's not the same. It just strikes its own chord, and so that kind of.
It feels like it's such a baseline thing, right? Like it's a roguelike deck builder. And that's where he's like, okay, I have a deck of cards and I'll make it roguelike. Okay, I understand. And like, tick, 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 tick.
Exactly.
It's such a, I respect it winning because on the face of it, it is very surprising that it has taken off as far as it has. I still feel like Indiana Jones getting second is worthwhile because having a licensed game reflect how you would think it could go. Like, oh, that's gonna be it's Indiana Jones. It'd be like this, that, and this, and then you get something, and it's just like, what the hell? How did you get to this point? And lots of times licensed games are just like, it's gonna sell because it's a licensed game, so who cares? Yeah, of course, Superman doesn't fly, he only jumps. And like you're kind of missing the point a little bit, but yeah, so I respect that. I respect the results.
All right, let's move on to the next topic, which is I Have Regrets, a game that we have that we wish that we didn't. I believe, if I remember correctly, Cary didn't have any regrets this year, so it was just 3 topics. We had Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection, which was mine. Marvel Rivals, which was Rich, because he spent way too much freaking time in it. And then Russ spent $100 on every Assassin's Creed game. So Marvel Rivals, 12%. They came in third. Nice. Star Wars, you want to come in third in this category. You know, you don't want to win. Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection, 34%. Russ, you win with 54% of the vote every
Biggest sucker
Assassin's
of the
Creed
year.
game.
That, you know what? That's funny because I am taking that as you made the most foolish of our mistakes. Like, that's exactly.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Russ. Good job.
Great.
Achievement unlocked. You suck.
Yeah. Well done.
All right. Feeling guilty about the backlog. This is a game that we've had on our backlog for a while, and we want to play, but we just don't have time for it. We've got Final Fantasy 16, Space Marine 2, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, and Black Myth Wukong, and this one is very evenly split.
Yeah.
So if we take a look, the fourth place is Space Marine 2 with 21.4%. Next is Final Fantasy 16 with 22.7%. And next would be Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown with 27.7%. And then Black Myth Wukong won the I need to get back to this game. This is in my backlog for too long with 28.2%. So that one was very evenly split.
Nice.
Who nominated Black Myth for that one? I think that was Russ.
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm still waiting for it to go on sale enough to justify it. For me, it's like a $48 game, and it hasn't hit that yet.
I can see $40, but $48 is very specific. Why 48?
I don't know, because you often will see those $48 deals. For me,
Yeah, it's
that's good enough.
20% off of 60.
Oh,
Right.
okay. There you go. That makes sense. Is that a $70 game or is it a $60 game?
60. It's 60.
I'm so very curious to see how Russ receives Black Myth Wukong, because I see all the things you are going to like about it, but then there's the difficulty, and so yeah.
I'm very good at finding things I don't like about games, so we'll see how that goes.
See, I'm very good at finding things I like about games. I'm not very critical most of the time. All right, next one. Speaking of the backlog, we got our backlog banger. This is a game that was in our backlog for a while, or that we didn't even know about. It's just really friggin' old, and we started playing it, and it ate up our time. So we had Donkey Kong for the original Game Boy, Inscription, Half-Life 2, Ghost of Tsushima, or Tsushima. Everybody yells at me every time I say it. I don't care. I'll just say it both ways, and then you guys can shut up. All right. So the one that lost would be Donkey Kong with 12.2%. Inscription is next with 13.4%. Then we have Ghost of Tsushima, 36.2%. And the big winner is Half-Life 2 with 38.2%. I have to say, I played Half-Life 2 this last week for probably 2 hours. And I was having an absolute blast. And then I shut it off and immediately felt nauseous. And I think it's because I'm playing it on a big-ass TV, and the motion of that game is super, super fast. And I was out for the night. I felt like I had just gotten off a roller coaster. It was bad, and I will never play it again.
Wow.
And I've beat that game in the past, but maybe I'll play it on a handheld instead.
Yeah. But yeah, that's cool. That's the winner. I mean, we said it then, but I'll say it again. This is a great time for people that haven't played Half-Life 2, including me, right? Like, I played Half-Life 2 and I'm almost towards the end of episode 1. That's what I said then. So I'll finish that this year. No, not this year, but because we only have a couple weeks left. But yeah, I'll finish that soon. But yeah, the 20th anniversary just dropped for Half-Life 2. And then there was the 25th, I think, for Half-Life 1 not that long ago. So good time to play.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I talked about it last time as well. It's almost a heathenist thing to say that you did not play Half-Life 2 on PC. And I just didn't like Steam at the time. I was so against Steam that I was like, no, I'm going to get that on a console. That's, you don't do that. So I played it on, 20 years ago. I played it on Xbox. And I loved it on Xbox. I love that game. Half-Life 2 is awesome.
Yeah.
So you didn't pirate it?
No, I played it on. I bought it on Xbox. I bought it on the original Xbox. But that, that was me, like, just like, screw you guys in your Steam. Who wants Steam?
10,000 games later.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
like,
there you go.
oh, Steam. Like,
I understand.
That's
Oh,
what
you
you
mean-
meant. Now I understand. Yeah.
All right. Most anticipated game of 2025. We've got Metroid Prime 4, Avowed, Doom the Dark Ages, Metal Gear Solid Delta. So coming in with last place is Avowed with 22%. This one's pretty evenly split as well.
22. That's high.
Doom the Dark Ages, 23.5%. Metal Gear Solid Delta, 23.7%.
This is an even split.
And then Metroid Prime 4 wins with 30.8%.
I respect it.
That is what the community said was their most anticipated.
Yeah. I respect that.
So our audience is going to play Nintendo games too.
Like, literally, the audience, like, at least 38% is getting a Switch too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I respect that list a whole bunch.
I'm
I
playing
respect
it right now.
Yeah. I respect. Yeah. That's solid. 2025. I really have a good vibe for 2025. CES is going to be like the pivotal moment. Like the first week of 2025 is just going to be bonanzas. I won't be there. Russ is going to be like, she's like, oh, it's so awesome. I just entered my name. And
Russ is going to be texting us. He'll send us messages like, this is amazing. We'll be like, what's amazing? Tell us.
This is the best
there's no time.
Yeah, I actually bought like new equipment for CES, like the
camera thing, right?
camera stuff, but then also a new microphone, so I can go back to the hotel room that night and like pump out a video that night. Usually, I wait until I get home, but I'm going to see, maybe if it's important enough and I want to talk about it, I'm excited enough about it, I might just do a video that night instead and just upload it. So.
Awesome.
YouTube.com/RetroGameCore.
Yes, sir.
Go subscribe, people. All right, and the last category, the final category, was Game of the Year. This one's not as evenly split as the last two, but it's not a blowout either. So we had 4 games that we nominated. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was the one that I nominated. Animal Well was the one that Cary nominated. Balatro was the one that Rich nominated. And then Russ nominated Astrobot. And the 4th place with 13.5% is Animal Well. 3rd place with 21.2% is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Wow.
2nd place with 31.1%
Drum roll.
is Astrobot. And
What?
yeah, I know, Rich, you called
What?
it 34.2%. Balatro.
Game
You've
of
been
the
singing
year.
its praises. Game
Yes,
of the
sir.
year.
Yeah, well deserved. We need to make a tweet about it so that the Balatro account can post a clown under our. I don't know if you guys have been watching that, but that's hilarious. Yeah, Balatro, well deserved. I mean, like it was the biggest surprise of the year for sure. But whether or not it was game of the year, I mean, there were so many great games out. But I've already made my case for it. I had a lot of fun with it. I bonded with my kids over it. I will probably buy the Jimbo plushie.
Nice.
Yeah, just for fun.
Yeah.
That's
Awesome.
But I think, one last point about just this game, we were talking earlier about roguelike deck builders. He intentionally did the thing where he didn't play any roguelike deck builders. Local Thunk didn't. So he just made what he think a roguelike deck builder should be, which I think is why it's so distinct from other games of that nature, like Slay the Spire and things like that. It's just its own thing. So I think that really worked out for him. And I think, that's probably something that more people should do.
Funnily enough, I like the visuals of Balatro more than Slay the Spire.
Me too.
Graphically, I think Balatro, especially with all the like little effects that they have, does a better job of just being visually appealing. Slay the Spire is almost like, have you ever seen where they take a comic book and they try to turn it into like a movie? So they'll have like professional voice and they'll just go from like panel to panel. So it's just like static screens and people are talking, then they'll go to the next static screen. And Slay the Spire is kind of like that. There's just a bunch of illustrated things that are very static, and whenever they do their action, they have like an action frame and then go back to a static frame, and it's just visually not very appealing. So I kind of like what Balatro does better, funnily enough, even though it's less, right? There's less illustration, there's less going on, but I still like how Balatro looks better.
I think I'll also say that like it's very nice in terms of these aesthetics, this aesthetic conversation. It's very nice that like it taps into all of those like dopamine things without being scummy at all, right? So I know it's got the Peggy 18, and there's controversy around
Bullshit.
that. Right, correct. But it's pretty cool that it does like the Peggle, even Call of Duty, that progression bar when back in the day when that went higher, you get that feeling of like, oh, this is cool. This is something cool is happening. I don't know exactly why it's happening. I don't know what I did to make it happen.
It's like when you open up back when Overwatch had loot boxes and you went to open it, you got like that crazy animation and it felt like this is special.
Yes.
But yeah, even like the integer scaling that they're doing with the almost low res cards themselves, where you can see the aliasing on this, the suit of the cards. So you see the heart and you can like literally see the stepping and the effect that they put on top and like little wobble type of stuff that they got going on. Really, really well attention to detail with regard to that particular aesthetic and feeling, and totally nailed it. So yeah, it's really well done. I still think Animal Well is fantastic. But
It is. This is a great list of nominations. FF7 Rebirth, Animal Well, Astrobot.
Right, yeah. It's tough. Those are all excellent games. But nice. This was a nice little awards thing that matters the most, and ours is the only one that anyone should pay attention to.
That's right. This is the real game awards or whatever. If you guys have suggestions on how we could make the NerdNest awards for the podcast better, let us know in the comments down below. And I think that's going to have to do it for this episode, the final episode of the year. We will see you in January, especially if you go to youtube.com/thefox and subscribe. If you go to youtube.com/fanthedeck and subscribe, and you go to youtube.com/retrogamecore and subscribe, especially because he's going to be posting that video straight from his hotel room from CES. And of course, you're here, NerdNest. Subscribe there too. But thank you guys for hanging out with us. It's been fantastic doing this show. I'd love sitting down with you guys each and every week and having these conversations about video games. It's just so much fun. And it wouldn't happen it probably would happen, but you guys listening makes it all the more better. So thank you so much. From the NerdNest, have a great break and stay rad, everybody. Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.
Guys.